It's quite sobering to realize we have now moved from Belshazzar and the end of the Babylonian dynasty into a new dynasty. Chapter 6, probably one of the most famous chapters in the Old Testament that any child knows, really, but such a profound chapter. And so I want to read it straight away. That's the first thing to do, and then we can talk about it. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps stationed throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 presidents, including Daniel. To these the satraps gave account, so that the king might suffer no loss. Soon Daniel distinguished himself above all the other presidents and satraps because of an excellent spirit that was in him, and the king planned to appoint him over the whole kingdom. So the presidents and satraps tried to find grounds for complaint against Daniel in connection with the kingdom. But they couldn't find grounds for complaint or any corruption because he was faithful, and no negligence or corruption could be found in him. The men said, "We shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God." So the presidents and satraps conspired and came to the king and said to him, "O King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the prefects and the satraps, the counselors, the governors, are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an interdict that whoever prays to anyone, divine or human, for 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be thrown into a den of lions. Now, O king, establish the interdict and sign the documents so that it cannot be changed, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be revoked." Therefore, King Darius signed the document and interdict. Although Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he continued to go to his house, which had windows in an upper room open toward Jerusalem, and to get down on his knees 3 times a day to pray to his God and praise him, just as he's always done. The conspirators came and found Daniel praying and seeking mercy before his God. Then they approached the king and said concerning the interdict, "O king, did you not sign an interdict? And anyone who prays to anyone, divine or human, within 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be thrown into a den of lions?" The king answered, "The thing stands fast according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be revoked." Then they responded to the king, "Daniel, one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or to the interdict you've signed, but he's saying his prayers 3 times a day." When the king heard that charge, he was very much distressed. He was determined to save Daniel, and until the sun went down, he made every effort to rescue him. Then the conspirators came to the king and said, "Know, O king, that it is a law of the Medes and Persians that no interdict or ordinance that the king establishes can be changed." Then the king gave the command, and Daniel was brought and thrown into the den of lions. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you faithfully serve, deliver you." A stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, so that nothing might be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. No food was brought to him, and sleep fled from him. Then at the break of day, the king got up, hurried to the den of lions, and when he came near the den where Daniel was, he cried out anxiously to Daniel, "O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you faithfully serve, been able to deliver you from the lions?" Daniel then said to the king, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths so that they would not hurt me, because I was found blameless before him and also before you, O king. I've done nothing wrong." Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. The king gave a command, and those who had accused Daniel, were brought and thrown into the den of lions, they, their children, their wives. Before they reached the bottom of the den, the lions had overpowered them and broken all their bones in pieces. Then King Darius wrote to all peoples and nations and every language throughout the whole world, "May you have abundant prosperity. I make a decree that in all my royal dominion people should tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is a living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion has no end. He delivers and rescues, he works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth, for he saved Daniel from the power of the lions." So this Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Well, a very challenging chapter in many, many ways. And we probably all feel a little bit the same, that it's quite strange the way the king was able to be deceived in that manner in order to sign something that he didn't really want to sign. But we don't know the whole of the details of the circumstances. And obviously he didn't know what he was doing. And you may have heard of this before. The law of the Medes and Persians could not be revoked. That was it. Once the law was signed, then it had to be fulfilled. And of course that had many repercussions, including this one. And it was very different from the law under Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. Nebuchadnezzar had total power, and none of this stuff about, non-revocable laws. So it was very different under the Medes and Persians. But have you noticed how, there are so many things to talk about in this chapter. I just want to highlight a few of them, which I'm sure you're conscious of. The qualities of this man, a man of integrity, and what was done because of his integrity to put him in a superior position to all these other men, was bound to cause trouble, wasn't it, with human nature? His integrity was his downfall, in a sense, in human terms. And so they hated him, and they would do their absolute best to find something that he could be accused of. And as you know, as I read this chapter, it was only in the things that to do with his own worship that they were able to trick the king into signing a document which would bring about the probable death of Daniel. But we know that Daniel was in the hands of a living God. And so that's very well-known chap. By the way, Daniel was probably quite an old man. Contrary to some of the books you see published, Daniel in the lion's den, and there's a teenager sitting by a load of lions, you know. He was an old man. And so I think with that in mind, we need to also realize that we're moving on into a very different area in the book of Daniel. And I will just pause for a minute as we think about what we've learned in that last chapter.